Hey everyone, it's another day in the immutable fortress, the Emerald City, where the law of the land is code and the grass is always greener. I just had the most amazing interview with Tim Draper. Unfortunately, there was a technical difficulty with the introduction, so I'm redoing it. But check out the interview. I'm telling you, it's fire. Enjoy.
Technologies associated with Ethereum are paving the way, in Tezos and all the things tied to Tezos, they're paving the way for a new world that is completely open and decentralized and transparent. And I think people are starting to realize that this is changing society from being tribal, where we were all tied to certain geographic territories, to being completely open and global. And I think that tribal to global movement is one that's getting more and more important. And I think that it's changing not just the way we operate with currency, and not just, because if you had Bitcoin and you were in Sudan and you got shoved out of Sudan and you showed up in Athens as a refugee, you could pull down your Bitcoin and you'd be fine. Right. If you were, and that's the beginning of people starting to think, oh, wait, I guess, yeah, I'm more of a global citizen than I am tied to one political force or geographic territory. And I think that when you combine Bitcoin with a blockchain, with smart contracts, and you put that together with all the other things that are happening in AI and big data, you're going to start seeing major industries be completely transformed. You've already seen some effect on banking and finance and commerce, but I think those are going to really soar. And then you're going to see effects on insurance, because smart contracts and insurance they're sort of a perfect combination. You could put, we could pay premiums over and over and over. And in the current situation, when you have a claim, you have to fight with your insurance company. But if it's built into a smart contract, you just get it. And I think it's just a better solution for everybody. And insurance, what is government? Government is a lot of insurance policies.
Right.
And so I think that's going to change. And then I think like real estate is going to change, because it's going to be tied to, you're going to have a perfect ledger of everybody's real estate and who owns what and where. And it's going to be much more liquid. And I think that's going to change real estate. And then in healthcare, I think first healthcare insurance will be run sort of Bitcoin plus smart contracts, but your healthcare is all going to be tied to artificial intelligence. You're going to have so much data up there, it's going to do a much better job of diagnosing any disease you have than any doctor could. No doctor could ask enough questions to get the same amazing data that you could have. So I think you put all this together and you say, wow, let's say 4 or 5 years from now, Bitcoin ends up with a 5% market share. That's a $250,000 Bitcoin. I think people are going to start thinking, whoa, yeah, maybe we're looking at it as at its cheapest. People say, oh, I wish I'd gotten in before. I think that's wrong-headed. They're going to look a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years, definitely 4 years from now. They're going to look back and say, either I did or I could have gotten in on that ground floor back then when it was wherever 8,000. So I think you're going to see volatility. You'll see the banks try to manipulate it down to nothing, because they're threatened, seriously threatened. And they say, oh, Bitcoin's not the thing, but blockchain, that's really important technology. Well, it's the Bitcoin technology.
Right.
blockchain is just the ledger that keeps it, and smart contracts are just the putting it all into software. I think that the banks are spreading that to try to keep people. It's like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, in The Wizard of Oz. It's like, no, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Look at this.
Well, you're threatening with, Bitcoin threatens their livelihood to a certain extent, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, they're. This is the way all industries respond when they have a new entrant into them that could be a long-term threat. They start by ignoring it, and then they band against it, and then they start trying to threaten it in various ways, and then finally they get acceptance, where they kind of go, okay,
Right.
we'll have a coin of our own, or whatever.
Yeah, just like we've seen Jamie Dimon recently, right? I guess kind of falling on his sword slightly, but anyway. It's funny when you mention also that a lot of people are going to keep on saying they won't buy it because of the price where it used to be compared to today. With the bull run where it is, people come to me because I'm the blockchain guy in my group, right? Obviously, you're the blockchain guy of almost, if not the world, the U.S. at least. So they'll come and be like, hey, I've been looking at this new one called EOS or Ripple. I'm like, what, but why are you discounting Bitcoin off? Everybody wants to find a new one.
Right. Yeah, well, that's okay. I like competition. It's just when things went badly, everything consolidated around Bitcoin, because it was like moving to the more secure one, the one that actually does have a real network effect, a real marketplace. And if you're a retailer, I mean, you're not going to say, I want to, I'm opening up to crypto, and the first one I'm going to use is
Right.
whatever.
Let's roll the dice on this one.
I'm going to say Bitcoin, and then they might say, maybe Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, maybe some of but they're not going to. The retailers are not going to go very obscure here. They're going to be, maybe top 3, top 5.
Yeah, and that goes with liquidity. That goes with the amount of market cap. And it's also great to see companies like Microsoft building on top of Bitcoin. That vote of validation, I think, really helps bring that confidence into the asset class.
Yeah, I think there's so much energy being built around the Bitcoin infrastructure that that it's going to be more and more useful over time, and as it becomes more and more useful, it spreads further, and so naturally it's going to, as there are more wallets, there's more value to it.
So this recent growth, you think it's more that it's a culmination, it's accumulation of people understanding that this is it, because at the same time, BitMEX research had an article about how there's a correlation between China devaluing the yuan and Bitcoin going up.
Yeah, so Bitcoin has so many different uses. One of them is sort of a digital gold. It's because gold was always the secure thing people would go to if they saw the sky was falling. And now they're saying, God, those gold coins, what do you do with them? You can't use them at Starbucks, but this Bitcoin you might be able to use at Starbucks, and it will probably grow in value when crazy things happen. It has historically. When Cyprus's government fell apart, Bitcoin surged, and then these little things that happen are making it so that you can feel the groundswell. It's like, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. You feel a lot of support where they're saying, hey, there's a lot of buying interest, and the selling interest isn't that high because they're all thinking, if I hold on,
Right.
it could be worth a lot more.
Did you?
People are making predictions of $1 million of Bitcoin. That would be a 20% market share around the world. But still, I'm looking at mine saying, 5% market share, that's probably reasonable in 4 years.
Definitely not greedy. It's not the numbers you hear about replacing gold. How did you feel about the Drop Gold campaign? I don't know if you've had a chance to see it.
No, I haven't seen anything about it.
Yeah, so there's been I think it was DCG that put together a multi-million-dollar kind of ad campaign, and it's a bunch of people on Wall Street kind of clutching onto their gold, trying to like be, agile and run around, and there's chaos, helicopters are falling, and the idea is to drop gold and to move over the Bitcoin.
Oh, you gotta love that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are feeling it, and the banks had a lot of PR clout that they were using against it, and then now that PR clout is gone. Goldman has a whole offering of Bitcoin, and JP Morgan has tried to create their own coin, which who knows, probably fall on its face. But it's great to see.
It's not positive for us, right?
It's great to see that they're realizing that, hey, this is better. It's just better. Bitcoin's just better than the political currency that we get from our governments, and having the government, having it swing back, some currency that swings back and forth based on some political wins, that does not work. Or a currency that's been over borrowed. Those are the things where you really get into a lot of trouble. Argentina, they got a great president, they got a great team running that country, but they are structurally doomed for the Argentinian peso. It will drop almost automatically 30 to 50% every year. So people, when they get Argentinian pesos, they're like, how quickly can I get rid of my Argentinian peso? Move it out.
You don't have confidence in
Nigerian naira, and I'm sure that the Venezuelan bolivar or whatever it is, I'm sure that they're having a lot of trouble with that too. People aren't really trying to hold on to those.
And there's a high Bitcoin volume in those countries, right?
Yeah, there should be. Well, I know there is. I have talked to people about how valuable an airdrop would be to a country like Venezuela, where they have no trust in their government, no trust in their currency, but they need to be able to provide services to each other. They need to be able to build their economy. A Bitcoin airdrop would be magic there, and a lot better than all the aid that goes to these third world countries that ends up half of it in the hands of the dictator and the other half are split between the dictator's friends and maybe half the work toward a power plant that they were trying to build. You never really get it right, and so all that aid could easily be passed along in Bitcoin through an airdrop. There are a lot of really interesting things coming along too, and people were concerned that Bitcoin was using too much energy, but then of course the miners figured out cheaper and better ways to mine, and then they said that it was not transacting quickly enough because it was only 7 transactions a second. Well, now with OpenNode, they can actually transact many millions of transactions per second, and we think that it's going to be faster than the Visa network.
And I know that OpenNode also is working with the Lightning Network as well.
Yeah.
To facilitate these micro transactions, because you're right, you can't scale without the layer 2 at the moment.
Yeah. So all that's coming, and once it's here, we as humans are going to have a choice. Do we want a currency that is open, transparent, and global and used everywhere, and and keeps perfect records of itself? Or do we want a currency that swings with political winds and is at the mercy of some government that's watching over you? And there's so many.
Well, when you put it like that, it's it's such a hard choice.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, so the Ethereum Classic kind of community, I feel like we're all kind of in agreement that Bitcoin as a currency really is the way to go. From a monetary supply, we follow the same ideas, which is proof of work and a fixed issuance cap. I think that for a lot of the audience we have, which are a little bit more on the blockchain side, that Bitcoin is the currency of the future. I think that's understood, and then some of the questions are more about smart contracts. What's the future in the smart contract world? The example you gave about InsurTech, I think that's the one I always give, right? Where instead of arguing about a claim, you can point to an oracle that says, look, the earthquake happened in my zip code, or maybe some sort of house IoT device to show foundation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, hurricane winds reached 80 miles an hour in that block. Yeah. So your house probably is trashed. I think that kind of thing. And deaths, I mean, that's a very distinct thing. Somebody has life insurance, they die, that's a fixed
Interesting, yeah.
decision, and a car accident, you can get pretty good with a car accident. A medical bill, that's pretty cut and dry.
Doctors already validated that. Okay, yeah, no, that, and it's figuring out those sources, those oracles of data that it's cut and dry, exactly as you put it. So do you envision a future, because ultimately I think you're one of the best visionaries in this space, do you envision multiple chains?
Yeah. Oh, I always like competition. You get more competition, good things happen. It keeps everybody on their toes. And governments were always monopolies, and that's why we were all complaining so much about our government, and that, hey, I'm not getting the kind of service I deserve for the money I'm paying. And whereas, if you buy a chair or a computer or a cell phone or something, you're getting a good value for that, because there are competitors fighting to get your attention. Well, now governments, as those geographic borders fall, and like the Estonian government starts competing across border, you're going to start seeing much better service and much better governance. And that's going to be a big change. So they're starting to realize that they've got to compete for their citizens, for their businesses, for their entrepreneurs, for the money.
The cat's out of the bag. We now know how to challenge the establishment by using a decentralized system.
Right, and some of them are looking and saying, oh, I've got to go back to the way it was. China, go back to the way it was. We're going to control the currency. We want to control our people. We want them all back in the box. And the good Chinese entrepreneurs are saying, what? What do you mean Bitcoin's illegal? We're out of here.
Yeah, no, and I was in Shanghai. There's just so much, even though it's like, the government has made certain claims, you still see innovation. Everybody's congregating around it. On the competition side, do you think also that there's going to be cooperation through interoperability between chains where, for example, Bitcoin continues to be the currency, and then that's used in smart contracts that run on Ethereum or Ethereum Classic?
Yeah. Oh, I see all that stuff happening. I think this is going to be, and Ethereum actually has done a great job of pushing smart contracts. And I think that is incredibly valuable. And that's going to be they're going to have a real, it's a currency now, actually defined as a currency. That currency has had a big lead in how smart contracts are built, and I think that although I'm seeing a lot of smart contracts built around Bitcoin, I know that the early pioneering work was done around Ethereum, and that is terrific. And smart contracts, think of that. We're going to have far fewer disputes because it's all going to be built into the software.
Right, no middleman.
Yeah, and so lawyers in that case are going to be better as advisors. You know, to be able to bring their services up a notch, so they aren't doing all the
The paperwork, more about implementing logic, right? Because that's what a lawyer, ultimately would be great at is on the logic side. So,
yeah, one of my big hopes is to have Bitcoin, to raise a fund in Bitcoin or Ethereum, raise a fund, invested in Bitcoin or Ethereum into all these little startups, and then have them pay their employees in Bitcoin or Ethereum, and have a smart contract that shows that when a company is sold, it goes through a waterfall into all the investors' hands the way it's supposed to. So all of that is done in a closed system, and we'll end up with, basically we'll have the whole system put together and not require accounting and legal and auditing and all compliance, all the fees that you have to go through when you're building or transfer payment groups, or there's so many of these little groups that
taking little fees
pile on to the fact that there are laws that have been set up. Well, you could actually build those laws all into the software, pay your taxes in software. You can do all that stuff right into the software, and then you got a great thing going. You got the beginnings of a much flatter, much more efficient economic system. So this is going to be, and I think that's where my guidance is for people who are regulators, for people who are venture capitalists, for entrepreneurs, and for LPs, to guide them toward this world that doesn't have all that friction, and to get the lawyers and accountants of today to realize that a lot of their job can be done automatically, so that they can move their advice or their counsel to where they're actually kind of helping the business more rather than doing the mechanical things. It's going to be a really interesting time, and I think that smart contract, this is just one example of all the things that people do with a Bitcoin smart contract.
Yeah, Vitalik also recently had talked about how you could be able to get paid in real time. Like, I have an hourly wage. I should be able to be paid every 10 minutes, right? And
oh yeah,
my rent.
Think about all those. I always use this example, the Star Wars example. You watch Star Wars movie, and there are 15,000 people that each getting 25 cents every quarter through a check that goes through the mail. Costs about $7 for Lucasfilm to send it. I mean, if that's all built into a smart contract, two great things happen there. One is you actually trust the studios. You actually have. It's not a weird system where they say, well, it's on the back end or the front end or whatever. It's a very clear system of waterfall where the money goes from one place to the next. So anytime somebody buys a $20 ticket at or 0.0001 Bitcoin ticket at the movie theater, that then gets divided into all those different wallets, and everybody their wallets just sort of pile up, and they get whatever they're supposed to get, but it doesn't cost the Lucasfilm guys, $7 every time they send one out.
It becomes
And
real
everybody
time.
feels like they were treated fairly.
Right, and everybody has the money real time, right? There's no, accounts payable and receivable if everybody's getting the money they're owed and owe in real time.
Oh yeah, and and that real time could bring on all sorts of other applications, subscriptions, and all sorts of things could be happening much quicker instead of a monthly payment or an annual payment or whatever. This could be to the minute.
So Tim, I know we have only a few more minutes left. I want to kind of pitch Ethereum Classic and talk a bit about what we've been doing lately. I know the difference in philosophy that created the fork and the two different sides. Most recently, ETC Labs, which sponsors the show, Terry Culver, our CEO, and James Woe, they got together. They realized that this is an undervalued coin that has all of the benefits of Bitcoin from a monetary standpoint and all of the benefits from Ethereum from a smart contract standpoint. The developer community has grown 75% in the last 3 months. So we ETC Labs employs 16 of the about 50 developers in the community. Also ETC Cooperative, IOHK, Parity. There's a lot of teams, and now most recently, a lot of people from the Ethereum Foundation have joined Ethereum Classic. Bob Summerwell, Jake Lang. What would you?
Ethereum, I was just checking. Ethereum Classic doesn't seem. Oh yeah. Oh, it is showing up. That's interesting. I was thinking that I was wondering why it wasn't covered on Coinbase. It is.
Yeah, and it's one of the few assets that you can purchase on Coinbase.
Yeah, that's great. And so, what's the difference? How's it better than Ethereum?
So I don't know if I would say better or worse. Ethereum Classic is sticking to proof of work like Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
There's no plan at all to ever go to POS.
And Ethereum is going to go to proof of stake like Tezos, right?
That's the expectation, yeah. And then the core difference on the decentralization and immutability. Never has Ethereum Classic decided to make some sort of change, no matter how bad there was, of an instant, with the DAO being the best example.
Right.
And furthermore, it's really that commitment on the monetary policy that I think is the biggest difference. From a Turing completeness and smart contract point of view, almost everything Ethereum has done, Ethereum Classic is implementing.
And how many of you are sort of running the key part of it, and then how many developers are working on it now?
Yeah, so the entire community is about 50 developers, but what's both frustrating and exciting is that no one controls any of this. There is no, so ETC Labs has this show. We have our Twitters. The Ethereum Cooperative controls the Ethereum Classic website and the Ethereum Classic Twitter. IOHK has a few. Every little team has some sort of stake where no one can kind of dictate what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's been easy in that two of the biggest decisions were capping monetary policy and getting rid of the difficulty bomb, which was going to have to force kind of a move towards proof of stake. Those were easy decisions. Later, it's going to get harder.
Is there a cap on the number of Ethereum Classic there are?
110 million. We added 0 to Bitcoin.
And Ethereum keeps adding 2% or 4%.
Right.
That worries me, because then it's all under the Buterin has the whole. He can just arbitrarily say, hey, we're just going to print 10% more this year.
Let's. I really, I have faith that he wouldn't. But you're right.
No, but he may not, but his, whoever follows him might.
Yeah.
That's what I don't. That's the part I don't like the concentration there, where because the whole point is to be decentralized.
Right.
So you want a fixed number.
We're not trying to compete necessarily with Ethereum as well. As much as possible, interoperability really is possible because of Ethereum and Ethereum Classic's kind of coupling history. So there's a lot more cooperation there. There could be a situation where the POS system is used to implement the smart contracts and then kind of settles on the proof of work chain of Ethereum Classic. But I'm glad that we got to talk about it.
That's good to know. It's good to know that it's a fixed
tie.
Terrific. Yeah. Oh, I'm not wearing my tie this time. This is Draper Associates tie.
I'll get you an Ethereum Classic tie for next time.
Oh, terrific. Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, make it red. Much more likely to wear it if it's red.
You got it. I'll make it happen.
Thanks.
Tim, thank you so much for the time.
Send me a link.
You got it. I definitely will.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.